The simple thing most people don't do that could change their life. Let me ask you a question. When was the last time that you sat down and had a real conversation with someone who was 30, 40, or even 50 years older than you? Not a quick hello, not a polite conversation at a family gathering. I mean a real conversation. The kind where you ask questions, listen carefully, and try to understand how they see the world. For many people, that answer is not very often, and I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that we've made as a society. Not because older people are always right. They're not. Not because they know everything. They don't. But because they have something incredibly valuable that many of us are overlooking. They have lived through things that we have not. And that changes the way that they see the world. Today, I want to share a simple idea with you that's something that almost anyone can do. Doesn't cost money, doesn't require special skills, but it might completely change the way that you think about your life. It maybe even change the course of someone else's life too. Imagine for a moment that you're about to take a long road trip through a place that you've never been before. You have two choices. First choice is to figure out everything on your own. You make guesses about which roads are safe. You make guesses about which roads are dangerous, which shortcuts actually save time, and which ones lead to nowhere. The second choice is to talk to someone who's already made the trip 10 times. Someone who knows where the rough roads are, someone who knows where people usually get stuck, someone who knows which paths lead to somewhere meaningful, and which options would you choose? Most of us would probably choose the second one. It just makes sense. Now here's the interesting part. Life works the same way. The people who are older than us have already traveled roads that we haven't reached yet. They've experienced failure. They've experienced success, heartbreak, friendship, career changes, personal losses, mistakes they wish they could take back, and decisions that they're grateful that they made. They've collected lessons along the way, and the strange thing is that many of us walk right past those lessons every single day. It's like living next door to a library and never even bothering to go inside. Now, this wasn't always the case. For most of human history, older generations played a central role in communities. Families often lived close together. Children spent lots of time around their grandparents, and stories were passed down from one generation to the next. Knowledge wasn't stored in phones or computers, it was stored in people. If you wanted advice, you talked to someone who had experience. If you wanted to learn, you listened. But over time, something changed. We became more connected through technology, yet in some ways, we became less connected to the people around us. We started spending more time looking at screens and less time listening to stories. We became experts at finding information. Repeat, information is not the same thing as wisdom. Now think about that for a moment. Your phone can tell you how tall Mount Everest is. It can tell you who won a championship 20 years ago. It can answer thousands of questions in seconds, but it can't tell you what it feels like to overcome a major setback after losing everything. It can't tell you what it's like to stay married for 50 years. It can't tell you what lessons someone learned after decades of trying, failing, and trying again. Those lessons live inside of people, and many of those people are waiting for someone to ask. So, what's the simple action I'm talking about? It's this. Spend time with someone from an older generation. That's it. Really. Have a conversation, ask questions, listen carefully. Maybe it's a grandparent, maybe it's a neighbor, maybe it's someone from your community, maybe it's someone living alone who rarely gets visitors. You don't need a complicated plan. Just be curious, just be interested, and ask them questions like, what was your life like when you were my age? What's something that you learned the hard way? If you could give one piece of advice to younger people, what would it be? What are you most proud of? What do people today often misunderstand? And then listen. Listen. Not just to respond, listen to understand, because something remarkable happens when people feel genuinely heard. They start sharing things that matter, stories, lessons, moments that shape their lives. And sometimes those stories contain ideas that can completely change how you think. Now, you might be thinking, that's nice. It sounds like it helps them. And you're right, it does. Loneliness is a growing problem around the world. Many older people spend large portions of their day alone. Some have stories that they haven't shared in years, and some feel like nobody's interested in what they've learned. So yes, your time and attention can mean a lot, but here's the surprising part. you may end up getting just as much as you give, maybe more. Because when you spend time with people who have decades of experience, something begins to happen. Your perspective changes. Problems that once seemed huge start looking smaller. Challenges become easier to understand. You begin to realize that many of the struggles you're facing aren't unique. Other people have faced them too, and they survived. Sometimes they even grew stronger because of them. That's powerful. It's hard to panic when someone you're talking to, someone who's already weathered storms bigger than the one you're facing. Let me give you an example. Imagine you're worried about making a mistake. Maybe you're afraid of choosing the wrong school, the wrong job, the wrong path, the wrong relationship. Imagine sitting down with someone in their 70s or 80s and just ask them about mistakes that they've made. At first, they might laugh. Then they start telling stories. They'll tell you about opportunities that they missed, wrong turns that they took, plans that completely failed, and then they'll tell you something unexpected. Many of those mistakes led them to somewhere important. A failed plan led to a better opportunity. A disappointment often opened a door that they never would have found otherwise. Suddenly, failure doesn't look quite so scary, not because failure disappears, but because you see it differently. That's what perspective does. It doesn't always change the circumstances, but it does change how you understand them. Now, I think we need more of this than ever. Now, we're living in a world that moves incredibly fast. Every day there's something new. There's a new trend, a new headline, a new argument, a new distraction. Everything feels urgent. Everything feels important. But people who have lived through many decades often remind us of something valuable. Most things that seem urgent today won't matter nearly as much 10 years from now. Relationships matter. Character matters. Kindness matters. The people who love you matter. Those lessons never go out of style, and sometimes it takes someone with a longer view of life to remind us of just that. So here's my challenge for you. This week, find one person from an older generation and spend some time talking with them. Ask questions. Be curious. Put your phone away and listen. Really listen. You don't need to solve their problems. They don't need you to solve their problems. You don't need to impress them. Just show up. You may brighten their day. You may make them feel seen and valued, but don't be surprised if something else happens too. Don't be surprised if you leave that conversation seeing your own life differently, because wisdom has a funny way of doing that. It doesn't usually arrive with flashing lights or dramatic announcement. It arrives quietly through stories, through conversations, through people. One of the greatest treasures in our world isn't hidden in a vault. It's not locked away in a museum. It's sitting in living rooms, on front porches, at family gatherings, and in neighborhoods all around us. It's the wisdom of people who spent decades learning about life. The question is whether we're willing to slow down long enough to listen, because sometimes a single conversation can give you insight that you'll remember for years. Sometimes one story can change the way you see yourself, and sometimes the smallest act, simply sitting down and listening, can end up changing two lives at the same time. One life because someone finally felt heard, the other life because someone finally gained a new way of seeing the world. And when you think about it, that's what it's all about. It's return to something as simple as a conversation. If this message resonated with you, think of one person from an older generation that you'd like to talk with this week, and then go do it. You never know which conversation might be the one that you'll remember for the rest of your life. Take care and God bless.